All right, so we have coconut almond truffles here. This doesn't require very many ingredients. As a matter of fact, we're using about 3. So this is as simple as it comes as far as desserts or snacks. Really, really, really good for you as well. We're just using almonds, coconut, and dates with a little bit of date water. So it doesn't take much at all. Of course, alternatively, if you wanted something even faster, or if you didn't have a food processor, you could just take a date, you could put an almond inside and eat that, and that would be really, really delicious. But we're gonna make these into some truffles. So it's a coconut almond truffle that we're gonna be making right now. And we're gonna be using a food processor. So we have our food processor, and our first ingredient, we're going to use a cup of almonds. Now we have a cup of almonds here. These are just dried almonds. Of course, you're going to want to find almonds at your store that aren't salted. So you want to find almonds that are raw. So you want raw almonds. Wonderful, high in vitamin E, lots of carbohydrates in there as well, so great energy food, and we've got a lot of amino acids in there, so those are building blocks to protein. So your almonds and your nuts and seeds in general, really good source of protein. Now what we've done with those almonds, we have soaked them in purified water for about 8 hours or overnight. So if you're using a raw almond, this is an important step because we want to remove what we call enzyme inhibitors. And that enzyme inhibitors are a part of the nut. It's part of the nut when it's dormant. And so you're going to want to basically wake the almond up. So you're going to want to remove those enzyme inhibitors because what they could do then is block the absorption of certain key nutrients. You just want to get rid of that. And we do that very simply by just soaking those almonds, those raw almonds, in water for about 8 hours. And we're going to go ahead and let that water go. We don't want to use that water because, of course, the enzyme inhibitors are in there. So we're just going to go ahead and get rid of that water. You might want to rinse them off as well. So rinse them off until that water becomes clean. So I have here 1 cup of soaked raw almonds. I'm going to go ahead and add those into my food processor. This is one of those recipes you might want to double or triple when you make it because you're going to really love these. Okay, so we have our cup of almonds in our food processor. So our next ingredient is a 1/2 cup of dried coconut. Okay, so I have just a little bowl. It's a 1/2 cup of dried coconut. You should be able to find your coconut very easily in your grocery store. It's just coconut flake is all that is. And if you can find unsweetened, of course, coconut flake, that's what you're looking for in your store. It should just come in a little bag. One thing about coconut flake is it's actually a parasite cleanse. If you're eating coconut flake regularly, it really does help eliminate parasites from the body, which we all have. We might not like to think about it, but they're there. So coconut's a good thing to add to our diet. The next ingredient is a 1.5 cups of dates. We have dates here that have been soaking in water overnight. That is to soften them up. It really does help this recipe when you're using dates that are very soft. Now, of course, we're using medjool dates, and they have pits inside. So you squeeze the date to get that pit out, and then you have the date. You have the rest of the date to use. Now, of course, we've been soaking this in water. This water, we've been soaking them for about 4 hours. About 4 hours is plenty. This water is delicious. This water is full of natural sugars from the dates, right? So dates are very high in carbohydrates, natural sugars. And so this water is sweet. So it's a good idea if you're at home doing this, just set this water aside. We're going to use some of this for the recipe, but not all of it. So if you have any left over, just put it in your refrigerator and drink it or add it to your smoothies or add it to any other recipe that you want some sweetness added to that recipe. So right now I'm going to go ahead and let it go. Wonderful. And in case you're wondering, I have these screens. I have screens on these jars that just help me to let water in and let water out. It just makes it easier. That's just, you can go to a fabric store and get, some mesh and just cut it to size and then put a rubber band around it, and it just holds very easily. So that's just an easy way to make a quick screen at home. You can also go to your hardware store and find screen and use that. So we are using 1.5 cups of soaked dates. Okay, so I'm just going to do that. Wonderful. Okay, now these dates are very, very moist, so it's not necessary for me to actually add any more juice to this recipe, but if it's not moist, you're gonna wanna add about a 1/4 cup of date juice to this recipe. But we'll start here. So we have a cup of almonds, a 1/2 cup of dried coconut, and 1½ cups of dates. The final ingredient would be a 1/2 cup of date juice, but only if you need it. So I'm gonna process this first, and we'll see if we wanna add any of the date juice. Okay, so we're using the food processor with the S blade. So the blade actually looks like an S. And we'll need to use a spatula. And we're just going to go ahead and work this a little bit in the processor. So you want to take your spatula and scrape down the sides and just process it a couple of times. Awesome. Oh, that looks great. Okay, so we've got it nice and finely ground. It's not too chunky, but this will roll into little truffles really well. So what I'm going to do here, the next step then, is I'm going to take a little bit of my dough mixture into my hand, and I'm going to go ahead and shape this into a ball. Okay, so I'm just going to roll it into a ball, just like that. And as you can see, I have a nice almond ball. And I'm going to take this little almond ball, it's like a doughy almond ball, so delicious. And I'm going to go ahead and roll that in coconut flake. Okay, so we're going to add this. We've got some coconut flake just set aside here. And I'm going to roll this up in coconut flake. Wonderful. Here we go. And you're going to want to keep that as round as you can. There we go. And I'll go ahead and put that on the plate. And you're just going to keep working this recipe until you've rolled all of it into little balls. And you've rolled all the balls into the coconut flake. And after you've done that, you're going to go ahead and chill this for about 2 hours. And you can eat them, of course, right now. But if you put them in the refrigerator for a couple of hours, they're going to become a little more solid. And here we have our coconut almond truffles. Enjoy.